This happened to me 3 years ago. I used to deliver newspapers for the Kansas City Star. If you know anything about modern-day newspaper delivery, it's nothing like little Timmy throwing a small bundle in the morning before school for his lunch money. I threw 1,500 papers a night, yes, 1,500 papers. And you do it at night, picking up newspapers at midnight and throwing them until 6 in the morning. You have to roll them yourself, stuff ads in them, the whole works. It is a terribly arduous job but pays well above minimum wage when you have a large route like I had. One night, I am delivering newspapers in a little place called Holt, Missouri, about 45 minutes from Kansas City limits. I'm throwing these out my window when suddenly I realize the same pair of headlights keeps passing me. It's too dark out in the middle of nowhere to make out the vehicle well, but it was undoubtedly an SUV or Suburban. I stopped my car and watched it as it rolled past me and went a good quarter mile down the road before, sure enough, it makes a large awkward U-turn back around. It does it a few more times before I finish my papers on that stretch of road and turn around. This road was a completely flat and straight road for several miles with no light pollution, only a few driveways for farmers and such who live out there. We called them bitch roads because you had to drive so far only to throw a few papers. As I am driving back, I realize the blinding headlights of the vehicle pestering me are no longer moving towards my own, they are stopped in the middle of the road. With barely enough room to pass, I lay on the horn and scream a few choice words as I fly past them. I will forever regret doing that. I was under the impression it was just a couple of individuals causing trouble. Even going 50 miles per hour past them and going a ways down the road, I heard their tires screech and the engine rev whatever it was, they had it souped up. Quickly, the situation turned strange. Very, very strange. They get on my tail within seconds, and my poor little beater wouldn't be able to outrun them even if it grew a dick and I dangled a naked lady in front of it. They ram my rear, and the unmistakable pop of gunshots goes off. They shoot several times, one bullet busting out my back window and whizzing past my head. In a panic, I did the only thing that came to mind and screeched Tokyo Drift style into a farmer's field adjacent to his gravel driveway. The truck follows but seemed to hit something hard and went careening past the driveway into the other half of the field. I gun it down to this guy's house. I have never met him before, a perfect stranger. I haul ass out of my car and begin banging on the door like a madman, hoping and praying I don't get hurt by either the people in the vehicle or the farmer I am waking up. The vehicle isn't very far away from me when almost every light in the house turns on at once. The vehicle screeches to a stop and pulls around. I see that it is, in fact, an old-style Suburban with massive wheels and no license plates. A large burly man wearing nothing but some boxers and several other guys greet me at the door, one brandishing a rifle. In the end, it all worked out. By chance, the man was getting married in the morning, and all of his buddies were over for his bachelor party. Thank God not all of them got blackout drunk. I filed a police report, yet nothing ever came of it. No other reports ever came of a beat-up Suburban with no license plates. I started carrying my pistol in my delivery car after that. My vehicle had 7 bullet holes, and the back bumper was missing. The thing that confuses me the most is we never found my bumper. Just, poof. They rammed it, and it disappeared. Maybe they took it as a souvenir. No doubt, for a second there, I really thought I was going to die.
This incident occurred around 7 years ago when I was living with a roommate and going to school at the age of 22. I'm female, by the way. It was a weekday evening, and my roommate had informed me that she was going out clubbing and staying over at another friend's house. She had invited me, but I didn't really feel like going. Instead, I made plans to sit at home, watch TV, and work on homework. Around 10 p.m., I went to the gas station to get some candy and energy drinks. I remember that day well because I had finished classes early, got my hair done, and was feeling confident and cute. I entered the gas station, and there were 3 guys, probably in their 20s, just lingering around. They looked like your average frat boys, and I recall one having shaggy blonde hair and covered in tattoos. I noticed one of them nudge the other and nod in my direction as I picked out my snacks, but I didn't pay much mind. They paid before I did and left. After I got my stuff, I walked out to the parking lot and saw them sitting in a beat-up lousy car, all three of them staring at me. I hopped in my car and headed back to my house, which was only a few minutes from the gas station, and they started their car and followed. I didn't think much of it, figuring they were probably just heading the same direction. However, I live deep in a subdivision with many turns, and after a minute of making several turns, I noticed they seemed to be following me. Getting nervous since I was home alone, I kept driving past my house. I pulled out of TH neighborhood, and they were still following. I drove for a while, and they sped up, getting close. Then they started flashing their lights, pulled up next to me, and rolled down their window. The part of me that has faith in humanity thought, what the heck? Do I have a low tire or something? But when I looked over and saw them leering at me, I knew it wasn't anything like that, and I immediately began to panic. We were on a more deserted stretch of road now, and they were swerving almost like they were going to hit my car, but I just sped up. All I could think was, should I drive to the police station? It's like 15 minutes away from here, and there are a ton of stoplights on the way. What if I have to stop, and they block my car or something? Fortunately, by this point, I was getting somewhat close to my sister's house, about 15 minutes away, but in the opposite direction of the police station. My hands were shaking as I dialed my sister's number. She answered on the fourth ring. Without preamble, I immediately asked her if Jake, her husband, was home. She sounded confused but said yeah. Jake is in the military, and I knew he owned guns. He's a good guy, but we didn't really talk much, and I never felt particularly close to him. Tell him to get his gun and come out to the driveway, please. By this point, I was near tears. I dropped the phone, and one of those individuals threw something at my driver's side window when they sped up near me. I finally saw my sister's house and pulled into her driveway. The entire house was dark. No porch light. Nothing. I was in trouble. I misheard her. They weren't even home, and there aren't any neighbors that would be close enough to run to. The guys pulled up behind me so I couldn't back out of the driveway, and they all jumped out. They all started walking up to my car, and one of them even reached for the handle and yanked on it. By this point, I was fumbling for my phone again. Do I have a weapon in here? Should I grab my phone and try to run? Should I back over these individuals or just stay locked in the car? In the split second that I looked up, two things happened. First, I made eye contact with the shaggy-haired blonde guy, who was the one yanking on my door. He didn't look angry or drunk. His eyes were dead and predatory. While I was frozen in terror, he looked cold, like he had done this kind of thing before. The other guys were trying my other doors, but I couldn't break eye contact with the blonde, who was inches from my face, and only separated by a glass window. Second, I finally saw a shape move behind him in the darkness, and I heard a loud bang. All the guys stopped and looked, and my brother-in-law stepped out of the shadows, pointing his gun at them, telling them to leave. They ran back to their car and sped off, screaming profanities at Jake and me. When they left, my sister ran outside and brought me in. The driveway scene sounds in writing like it took a long time, but in reality, it was only a few minutes. Because of that, and because of how dark it was, we didn't get the guy's plate number. We called the police, and they came out to get our statements. They said they would have someone patrol the area to keep an eye out for any cars that were the same make, model, color, but that it would be hard to catch the individuals without the license plate number. Unfortunately, nothing ever came of it. They never caught those individuals. I can only wonder what they wanted with me, what they were planning, or what would have happened if Jake hadn't been there.
I was driving around 1 to 2 a.m., heading home from a board game night at a friend's place that had run really late. They lived in a rural area, so it was a long and lonely drive home. I was alone in my car. Three strange things occurred in quick succession. Firstly, I drove into a very heavy bank of fog. While fog wasn't uncommon in the area, it usually occurred only in the mornings and never after midnight. This area wasn't close to the ocean or anything, and with no wind, it couldn't have been blown from somewhere else. It was odd, but not unexplainable or scary. I reduced my speed to around 40 and continued on until I eventually drove out of it. The second odd occurrence was stumbling upon a massive tree completely engulfed in flames. It had to be at least 3 stories tall and was quite a distance from the road. There was no one around, and while people sometimes burn old trees, doing it at 2 a.m. seemed unusual. There was no storm, ruling out a lightning strike. What felt even stranger was the feeling it gave me, like it was a portent or omen. I'm not a religious or superstitious person, but looking at that tree, I can't even explain the feeling. It was as if something important was happening or about to happen. Nevertheless, I continued driving. Then I reached a section of the road undergoing maintenance. Seeing road crews working at all hours wasn't unusual, but this time, there was no crew in sight. I slowed down and stopped because there was a sign instructing me to wait for directions. Several trucks with flashing lights, windows down, a small bobcat with a scoop on the front, and even a radio playing somewhere, though I couldn't spot it. The scene is etched into my memory 5 years later. The song, American Pie, was playing on the radio, and suddenly, I felt an overwhelming fear, more intense than any other experience I've had. I've faced a deadly snake bite, had a gun pointed at me, and seen my sister nearly fall off a cliff, but never have I been as frightened as in that moment. It was as if I was struggling to catch my breath. The flat ground stretched in every direction, and even if these dozens of men had hidden as a prank, there was nowhere for them to go. Then, abruptly, the song seemed to skip on the lyrics, the jester stole his thorny crown. It wasn't a repeat of the same section, it felt more like time was skipping. I can't even find words to explain this. I suddenly realized that something terrible was about to happen to me, possibly the same fate as the road crew. So, I floored the gas pedal. For 2 agonizing seconds, nothing happened. The car didn't even move despite being in drive with the engine running. Then, suddenly, the acceleration kicked in, and I was pushed back into my seat, narrowly avoiding some of the trucks. I drove at an unsafe speed for about another 15 minutes, and the feeling of danger gradually dissipated. I eventually pulled over and cried my eyes out. For years afterward, I was obsessed with the experience. Weather reports didn't record any fog, and when I posted in local Facebook groups, no one else claimed to have seen it. When I drove the route a week later in daylight, I couldn't find any evidence of the charred tree or even a patch of dead grass. Calling the Department of Main Roads revealed that the last maintenance in that area had been 7 years ago and not in the section I described. Upon returning to look for the tree, I found no signs of recent repairs, and there were even several potholes. Usually the first things fixed, I eventually sought the help of a psychologist, concerned that I might be experiencing some kind of adult-onset mental illness. However, he couldn't find anything wrong with me, and I never got any answers. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed these tales of suspense, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Black Scary Stories for more spine-chilling content. This is your host Nicholas Black. Until next time.